So the yellow looking grass there is a Molinia, and it's Molinia caerulea, and it's a subspecies called Arundinacea, and this particular variety is called windsowl, which means wind-sailed. Now I often talk about Molinias and why you need to get them, and this is one of the reasons that you need to buy a Molinia, because most Molinias go this lovely butter yellow colour at this time of the year, and we're in early November now in the UK. Now, it does tend to look better if you can get a little bit of sunshine onto that, and we got a cloudy, windy day today, so it's not really the best day to show you this. But the reason I'm doing it now is because Molinias tend to have this very, very fast way of going from sort of late summer into a late autumn very quickly, and by that I mean they blow over very quickly once they get to this phase. Now, you can often come out to Molinias at this time of the year and the whole plant will go over, and it's not far from doing that now. And because we're now in darker nights and I just don't have a chance to do these videos as much as I did, I just thought I'd show you it as it stands at the moment. Now, it's not going to be long before I walk out here one day and that whole clump would have just collapsed to the ground. And that's what I like about this plant, to be honest with you, because it doesn't cause a lot of problems. So if you're an amateur to growing grasses, or you're a newcomer to growing grasses, Molinias are a great choice. Now, at the moment, this particular one is about 7 foot tall to the top of the seed heads. Last year, it made 10 foot. This year's not been a great year for Molinias because the weather's just not been right. They prefer a more damp climate, and this year we've had a very dry and hot one. But nevertheless, they've done really well, most of them. And this particular one, windsowl, is doing really, really well. So, yeah, so they look really good. They don't cause a lot of problems. They'll take most garden soils. And there are different varieties. There's a lot of different varieties, and I've got several in this garden. Some smaller ones, and then there's some very tall ones. Windsowl being one of the tallest, and I'll show you another one in a moment. Now, I've got another one called Storm Cloud, which is over here, and it's very appropriate today because of the weather. And again, Storm Cloud last year was the best colour ever. Now, I moved it this year because it was just not doing what I wanted it to do in the right place. It was going to get crowded out. Now this year, again, that last year was 7 foot tall. This year, it's not even 4, and it's already dying away completely, whereas last year, this was the brightest one that I actually had in the garden. Now, while we're on Molinias, we might as well show you another one over here. This one here is called Molinia, again, caerulea, subspecies Arundinacea, and it's a very tall one, very tall. This one's 7 foot. It's made 7 foot this year. It's a young plant. It's had exactly the right location for itself. And I had watered this area quite early on, and it gave it a really good start. But it's quite tall. It's not yet at that orangey yellow phase in its stem, but it's getting there. So that looks great. Now, there are smaller ones. There's a particularly smaller Molinia called Torch, Molinia Torch, and it's a really, really nice one. But there are several different types. Now, one of my favourites by far is this one here called Windspiel. And again, this has got a lovely colour. But it would look 50 times better than that if the sun was side lighting it, but it's not at the moment. It's doing just that. But it still looks good, and it's standing out, and it particularly stands out well with that elder there. That's Sambucus on the right, that purple one, and it stands out really well. So if it was getting some sun hitting it, it would bounce out against that. It's fantastic. So Molinias are dead easy to keep, as I've said. They don't cause a lot of problems. There's some good varieties out there. Try and stick to a variety rather than a seeded one, a self-seeded. Let them seed around by all means. They will seed around. But let them seed around, but choose wisely if you're going to pick one. Make sure it's got good attributes that's worth picking. So that's a taller variety. Now, there's another one. We'll show you this one. Look at that, a right mess. And I've been going through this one through the year and telling you about it. It's one called Pont de Say. It's at the collapsing stage already, but the only downfailing of this one is that it does splay out. So that splay, you can see that is pretty typical of this particular variety. Nevertheless, it's a really nice one because it has an olive green to dark brown stem and flower heads, and particularly heavy seed heads. And there's one still there in the background there. You can't really make it out here. I'll not go through to it. It's quite heavy still. So if you've got a variety called Molinia caerulea, it basically means, in easy terms for an amateur, it basically means it's going to be a smaller variety. A subspecies, Arundinacea, means it's going to be tall, like this one. So very, very nice plants to have. Good grasses to get, especially for autumn. Not hard to propagate from the original plant. If you want to keep it true to variety, that's exactly what you're going to have to do. This one looks particularly good. I just love them myself because they're very early to send up the seed heads as well. So you get quite a long season of interest. Oh, while we're here, let's talk about this one. This is Miscanthus sinensis memory, and I've been showing this one throughout the year. It's gone through its lovely yellow colour they had less than a week ago, and now its seed heads are really fluffing up, and this is it's an absolute stunner. I cannot say enough about that one. I just couldn't walk past that without mentioning it. So I keep quite a few different Molinias, and this is where they are. I keep them in here. So this is my overspill stock that I have, and I tend to put these back into the garden. I've got a couple of other varieties in here. There's one called Black Arrow, and Molinia Torches in here, sat in here somewhere because it just wasn't doing very well where I had it, so I decided it had to come there. And while we're at it, there's one here that's fell over. Ah, there we go. Now this demonstrates perfectly exactly what's going to happen to these. Let's just show you. So I think this one's Pontaceae, yes it is. So Pontaceae, so when it gets another week, couple of weeks in the garden, the ones I've just shown you, this is exactly what they're going to do. They're going to collapse like this, and they are so easy to remove. Having said that, it doesn't want to do it, typical. But there you go, so some of it's broke away. It's not quite ready to go yet, but another week or two in the garden and most of these varieties are going to go. They're going to drop down. So, Molinia, a great species to have. And highly recommended by myself, especially if you're just getting into ornamental grasses. Try and include at least one in your arsenal of grasses. They're definitely worth having. If I had to recommend any, I'd recommend one called Molinia caerulea. What's its proper name? Moorhex, but it translates as bog witch. Great name, and it has a great colour. That's a very small one. I can't show you that one because the one I had is just another house, and I've not got it here. And then if I had to recommend a taller variety, I would go firstly with this one called Winchspiel, and secondly with one I showed you earlier called Karl Forster, which is another tall variety. And that is a Molinia also. So well worth having. There you go. Hope that helps you out on any choices you make. Anything you need to know, just give us a shout and I'll try and answer it the best I can. Talk to you later. Ta-da.